Montana's only daily sports talk show, Nuanez Now. Watch the show statewide on SWX Montana Television.
I like football!
Now here's your host, Coulter Nuanez.
Yo, what's up, Montana? Welcome in. 1029 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Coulter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran-owned, the only Bears that should be in your garbage. Made a huge show yesterday. Got to about half of it. So we're going to get to a lot of the other stuff I wanted to talk about yesterday. I wanted to hash out. We told you about the four additions the Lady Grizz made in the transfer portal over the weekend. I think they very much help the Grizz. But I wanted to tell you a little bit more about these players and why I think it's going to help Montana women's basketball. We also got into a little bit about the offensive line and the defensive line at Montana State and some of the things we're going to be watching the spring game. But I also have a whole list of players that I'm excited to get my eye on that have been, the scuttle. People are talking that I can't wait to see when we're over there in Bozeman on Saturday. So we'll do that. I also have a thought on Bobby Kennedy and his coaching tree and maybe how that's going to influence his performance or his operation, rather, as a Big Sky Conference head coach for the first time ever. And also I'll talk some NBA playoffs, which is all things that we didn't get to yesterday. So that's all coming up, but we're going to start with some NFL. Last Wednesday, a true pleasure to be joined in studio by Andre Patterson. He is a University of Montana alum who then coached for more than 4 decades, coached for the first 15 years of his career in the collegiate ranks, starting at Montana, and then he got into the NFL. And he's been in and out of the NFL for the better part of the last 30 years. Coached 2 different stints in Minnesota with the Vikings, coached with the Broncos and the Browns, and most recently had a stint with the New York Giants. He is going into the Montana Pro Football Hall of Fame this next induction class in June. And he came in to share some of his story and his coaching journey, his path, some of the great players that he's covered. But then we were chopping up a little bit afterwards. He's like, man, if you ever want to talk ball, just give me a call. So then we were texting about Dexter Lawrence, who was the great New York Giant, now turned Cincinnati Bengal, and the trade that he was the centerpiece of this last week with the Giants flipping Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals. And so Andre texted me and said, hey, if you want to talk about Dexter getting traded to the Bengals, happy to do it. So a return guest. Happy to have this guy back for the second week in a row. We go down to the ESPN empty phone line. Welcome in, Andre Patterson, longtime defensive line coach with multiple stops in the National Football League, including most recently with the New York Giants. Jerry, thanks for being here, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Oh, wonderful, and happy to have you back. I'm very excited about talking ball with you again because last week you told us such great stories. First of all, we got to start with the big picture here. Dexter Lawrence, it's been talked about that he was rumored in a trade for a long time with the New York Giants. And then that trade happened over the weekend with him finally getting dealt to Cincinnati. But before we get into sort of the logistics of the trade and what this means for both sides, I want you to tell the people what it was like sort of watching this man work. You were his defensive line coach for the duration of his career there with the New York Giants, and he has become one of the best interior defensive linemen that the league has seen, not just contemporarily, but just period. So take us through your view of Dexter Lawrence and just watching him grow. What made him such a great player here these last handful of years?
Well, I tell you, one of the reasons that I took the job with the Giants was to have a chance to coach Dexter and Leonard Williams. They both were 2 guys when they came out of USC and Clemson that I really wanted when I was with the Vikings, but, they went earlier than we could take them. I had Linval Joseph with the Minnesota Vikings, who ended up being the best nose tackle in the league doing about a 4 or 5 year run there. Big, tall, long, strong, and that's what Dexter was coming out. Big, tall, long, strong, physical guy, but could move. For 350 pounds, he could move like a 300-pound guy. And so for me to have an opportunity to coach him, I jumped at that opportunity. Dexter had been, he wasn't great, but he was a good player. And to his benefit, that he listened to what I had to tell him. And in my first year with him, he went to the Pro Bowl and was a second team All-Pro. And then my second year with him, he went to the Pro Bowl and was first team All-Pro. And then my third year with him, he went to the Pro Bowl and was first team All-Pro and the best defensive tackle in the NFL. So, he's unique. There's not anyone else in the league like him. And to be honest with you, I was really surprised that the Giants made the trade.
What do you think the motivation is behind it? I mean, obviously, he's going to get a huge contract. He's going to be on a one-year deal in Cincinnati this year, 1 year, $28 million. And they'd probably be up for, I'm assuming he's going to get one of the biggest contracts the NFL has seen. And certainly amongst his peers is going to be one of the highest paid players in the league on the defensive side of the ball. So what do you think the motivation is for New York unloading him and shipping him to Cincinnati?
Well, I think part of it is, the year 2 years ago, Dexter had probably the best season that a nose guard has had in the NFL. He had 9.5 sacks, unbelievable amount of quarterback hits and pressures, and that was still with like 7 games to go. If he had gotten to 10, he would have been the first nose tackle in the NFL to get 10 sacks since the 80s, Leroy Glover. So he dislocated his elbow against the Dallas Cowboys, and was done for the rest of the season. So he missed the last 6 games. And when he came back, last season, the elbow was never 100% until halfway through the season was over. And during that offseason, he was trying to get the Giants to give him a new contract because of, how well he's played and who he was, and they didn't want to negotiate. And he went through the season all last year, and they didn't want to do it. And then they made the change. And I just think, in Dexter's side of the story, I just think he got to the point to where he's seen so many of his buddies that he came in with there that were really good players, and the Giants let him go, and they went on to win Super Bowls and have great careers. And I just think he probably just wanted a new start and an opportunity to go someplace else. I think the Giants looked at it and said, hey, we got the 5th pick in the first round of the draft, and when Cincinnati offered the 10th pick in the draft, they're saying, hey, number one, we never thought we could get a first-round pick for a defensive tackle, and number 2, a top 10 pick. Now they have 2 top 10 picks in the draft, so I think that's what motivated them to go for the trade.
Andre Patterson, former defensive line coach for the New York Giants, joining us here on Nuanez Now, talking Dexter Lawrence trade. He was traded for the 10th pick to the Cincinnati Bengals. That's what makes this trade so rare, right, Coach? I mean, it's not often you see a player of Dexter Lawrence's caliber get traded at all, especially one of these premier positions like interior defensive line. But then when he is traded, I mean, first-round picks are like, they're not even like gold. They're like platinum in the NFL. I mean, this is as valuable as you can get, especially a top 10 pick. So I think it's a testament to the quality of player that Dexter Lawrence is, no question. That he was able to garner that amount of capital, but also a little bit crazy that Cincinnati wanted a guy this bad to give up a top 10 pick. So what did you make of the logistics of the trade, and just how rare is this when you see a guy that's this good get traded but also garner this much on the open market?
To me, I think it's more surprising that the Giants would give up on a guy that good in the prime of his career, more than Cincinnati giving up the 10th pick in the draft. This for me, this has been a weird week because for the past 24 years, this week I'm locked in a room, in a war room, and we're in there arguing and debating, trying to get the board the way you want it for the draft to start on Thursday. But the one thing you find out about the draft is from the outside looking in, people give the picks way more value than what they are worth. Okay, because it counts on the volume of and number of great players that are coming out in each draft. Okay, so just because a guy is the 10th overall pick in this year's draft, he may have been a second round pick in last year's draft or the draft before that. So all you can judge him off of is the talent that's available in this year's draft. And I guarantee you the Cincinnati Bengals looked at it and said, okay, at number 10, there is not an elite player there at 10.
No question.
We can get an elite player in Dexter Lawrence. And that's why they made the trade. So, I've had last year's draft, as we looked at it, there was 15 players in the draft that you looked at and said, okay, these 15 guys have a chance to be special guys. You want to get one of these guys, right? But the rest of the draft, they're players you have to develop and over time could become great players. They're not going to walk in the league and be great players. And so that's the thing about the draft. It's a crapshoot. You never know how it's going to play out. You got so many different voices in your war room, trying to direct the board in the right direction. And so that's why you see more failures through the draft than you see success through the draft.
Andre Patterson joining us here on Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio, talking all things NFL with the draft on the horizon, including the blockbuster trade over the weekend. Dexter Lawrence, one of the top interior defensive linemen in the NFL, getting traded to the Cincinnati Bengals. An interesting offseason for the Bengals, too, Coach, because Trey Hendrickson has been an uber-productive player in Cincinnati, but has not necessarily translated to Cincinnati being that good defensively. I mean, they've been really good on offense. They've had some struggles defensively. Then this offseason, they let Trey Hendrickson walk, despite the fact that he's had a couple big years in a row. I mean, 17.5 sacks, back-to-back seasons. Then last year, only played in 7 games, but he's still statistically one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. But then they're able to get a guy like Dexter Lawrence. So, I mean, I would argue, even if Lawrence obviously doesn't have the sacks, but you mentioned it's a totally different position, totally different responsibility. To me, Lawrence is a much better player than Trey Hendrickson. So do you think this is an objective win for the Bengals, being able to come up with this quality of a defensive lineman coming out of an offseason where they let a guy that was pretty dang productive walk?
Oh, there's no question. Dex has been double-teamed at a higher volume than any defensive lineman in the last 15 years in the NFL, and that's on run plays and pass plays. So just that by itself are going to make the guys around him better. And I'm going to give you a little secret. I tell my players all the time, if your only value to the team is sacks, then you're cheating yourself. Because I want you to think about this for a second. Through 17 games in the NFL, a starting defensive lineman is going to have somewhere between 550 to 600 pass rush snaps through a season. So if you get 17 sacks and 500 rushing attempts, there's nothing in sports where they would give you a nickel to be 17 of 500.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? So there's nothing in sport where you would have value to be 17 of 500, okay? So sacks are given way too much value than what they do in the outcome of the game. So you affect the game more as a great defensive lineman when you affect the quarterback. You make him feel you. You make him throw the ball before he wants to. You make him throw it too high. You make him throw it too far. You make him throw interceptions. That computes to winning. I've been in games where we've sacked the quarterback 9 times. He still threw for 450 yards, and we gave up 40 points. Okay? I've been in games where we've sacked him once, but we gave up 175 yards passing, and we blew the other team out. So it's more important that for winning that you have a D lineman that affects the game. And I think that's the reason why Cincinnati didn't want to pay him. Yeah, he got those sacks, but overall value, how much does he affect the game? That's what computes to winning and losing.
And you've seen this so often, too. I've thought this for a long time because the guy, I mean, if you look at the structure of NFL defensive contracts, the guys that are getting paid the most money on defense are the pass rushers and the lockdown corners. And then sometimes the interior guys get up there, but they're not like, like right now, you got a guy like Aiden Hutchinson making way more money than a guy like Dexter Lawrence. And if you actually look at the impact on the game, I think you'd probably agree with me that it's at a much higher level if you can be disruptive on the interior. So if you were running a team, if you were king of the day for the day, was that how you would do it? I mean, do you believe that interior defensive line play can actually be more impactful? Would you pay those guys more if it was up to you?
No question. Unless I had an edge rusher that was special, like
right.
Daniil Hunter that I had in Minnesota, he's special. He's going to get you 14 to 17 sacks a season, but he's going to end up somewhere around 35 to 40-something quarterback pressures and hurries. So he affects the game, and so some guys are considered great pass rushers in this league just because of the numbers that they have at the end of the season with sacks. But if you go through and you watch the game, that's the only play they make. So, they might have been on the field for 65 plays, and the one play they make the whole game is one sack. Well, the whole world looks at it and go, oh, he had a great game. Then the next week he may have 2 sacks, but those are the only 2 plays he made in the game. So, I just think as front office people, as coaches, you have to understand what computes to winning and losing in this league, and just don't get caught up in the numbers.
We saw this a couple of years ago with the Grizz. 2023, when the Grizz made a run to the national championship game, their interior guy, they were playing 3-3-5 with a true nose, and their interior guy, Alex Gubner, he probably had 30 tackles. I think he had 8 or 9 tackles for loss, but he only had 3 sacks. But he was the defensive player of the year in the Big Sky because Bobby Hauck, the former head coach for Montana, got on the table and screamed and yelled and said, "Are all of our defensive statistics that exist on this team when it comes to the front 7 are because of this guy? We have an edge that has 10 sacks. It's because of this guy. We got 2 inside linebackers that got 125 tackles. It's because of this guy." So you're right. Sometimes it goes far beyond the numbers.
Yes, and that's the difference. And I don't know how the Giants replace that hole. You know what I mean? That's a big hole that you let walk out the building. And I guarantee you, the middle linebackers that are still there in New York aren't very happy right now because they could sit back in a rocking chair and just hit a gap because nobody was going to get to them because they had that. To me, that's the difference with Dexter. Is whoever you're playing that week, they have to have a plan to handle him in the run game and pass rush wise. Because if you single block him, he's not going to be blocked. He's going to wreck the game. So it all starts with finding a way to control him. Well, if that's the single focus, and then you have 2 guys on the edge that can rush, you just made those 2 guys better.
Well, and he saw that in New York, right? Andre Patterson, former New York Giants defensive line coach, joining us here on Nuanez Now. Brian Burns, a really good player, came on Thibodeau, highly drafted guy. But, those guys, they got a lot more production because they were playing next to Dexter Lawrence, right?
No, there's no question. It's if you're saying, hey, our center can't handle this guy, and the 4 years I've had Dexter, there wasn't a center that can block him, and that includes Kelsey when he was in Philly. Kelsey has said it 1,000 times on TV that the hardest guy he's ever had to block is Dexter Lawrence. So they're going to have to commit a center and a guard to handle him. Well, that means one of your outside guys, at least one of your outside guys, are going to get a true one-on-one. And so when your nose is not a pass rusher, the guard will give a hand to hold him there, the center will take over, and then the guard will go out and help the tackle on the defensive end. when you have a guy like Dexter Lawrence, that guard's not leaving. They're going to make sure they have four hands on him. So that helps those guys, and it helped Bernsey out last year, and that made a big difference in the big numbers he put up. And he was fast to say the reason why was Dexter.
Well, it's really interesting the situation the Giants are in now, because you mentioned, I mean, Dexter Lawrence sort of saw some guys come and go, that had been there in New York and then go have great success. I mean, Saquon Barkley comes to mind. Minka Fitzpatrick comes to mind. I mean, they've had some great players that have come and gone and went on to
Leonard Williams.
Right, exactly, right. Leonard Williams, I mean, just won a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks and had an unbelievable year this last year in Seattle. The front has been far from the top of the list for the problems in New York that have been holding them back, but now sort of a revamped everything, right, with John Harbaugh coming in and a new staff, and you got this young up-and-coming quarterback in Jackson Dart that I know a lot of people around New York are excited about, but they still do have some of those stalwart guys defensively, even though if they do unload Lawrence. I mean, they still have Thibodeau. They still have Burns. They still have Abdul Carter, who was a top 3 draft pick out of Penn State last year. So what do you think of just sort of the evolution now of New York as they sort of enter a new era there with Harbaugh at the helm?
Well, I think the quarterback has a chance to be special. He's a good player. He has that it factor about him that the players rally around him. They want to win for him. So I think the quarterback position, they got solved as long as they can keep him healthy. There's reports out there that they're trying to trade Thibodeau on Thursday. We'll see if that happens. But if Tibbs stays there, they got three outside linebackers that can play, that are really good. The D tackle position is where it's really weak right now, and they've got to do something. But what they have there right now is not good enough. So they got to go find a veteran player that hasn't signed with anyone as of yet to bring in, and then draft at least 2 of those guys and hope they can develop those guys. They let Bobby Okereke go, their starting middle linebacker. I know they picked someone up in free agency, but the biggest problem we had while I was there was in the secondary. We really struggled at corner. When we let McKinney leave, he's another guy that left.
Right.
We let him leave and go to Green Bay, and he became a Pro Bowl player in Green Bay. That really hurt us. So I think D tackle and secondary is going to be huge things that they have to take care of in the draft on Thursday.
Well, when it comes to just that division, coaching in it, I mean, the NFC East has had a new champion. Basically, it's just been on rotation for like 25 years. And it's been, the Eagles more often than not lately, but still, I mean, you've seen everybody else, Washington, New York, and Dallas, all rise up and be in contention for, if not win that division over the last 2 decades. And there's so many, I mean, every team in that division is a rival, right? Everybody's rivals with everybody else. Yeah. It's one of the divisions that gets the most exposure and fanfare because of the media markets and all that. So what do you think of just sort of the prospects of that division moving forward? Because it seems like there's big question marks for all 4 teams in that division coming into this next year.
Yeah, and to me, I think that's a positive for the Giants, because every team in that division has holes and things that they have to try to fix. They all have some good things about their team. But they all have holes. We beat Philly last year, at home after they won a Super Bowl. They still have, the offensive line was not what it was the year that they won the Super Bowl. They didn't get the production out of the receivers that they had the year before, and they didn't play great defensively like they had the year before. And Dallas, Dak threw the hell out of the ball. They got 2 big-time receivers. They're explosive on offense, but their defense really struggled. They were undersized, just not up to NFL standards. So they have to make sure that they do that. And then the Redskins lost their quarterback, I think, week 3 of the season. He got injured, and that really hurt them last year. So, I obviously I think Philly would probably be the one that everybody's saying is going to pick to win the division, but I think it's wide open. If somebody gets hot And any one of those 4 teams could win that division.
Well, last thing for you, the NFL draft starts on Thursday with the first round. It's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania this year, so that's an interesting spot for the draft to be held. I'm sure people are going to come out in droves because people love their football in Pittsburgh. But any early thoughts on just the crop? I mean, last year, I guess it was 2 years ago, that was just the quarterback draft where you had 6 guys go in the top 10 from the quarterback position. Last year, a little bit more typical. Any early thoughts just on this draft class and maybe how you think it's all going to go down, beginning with the Raiders having the number 1 overall pick?
Well, everyone's saying that there's only going to be max 2 quarterbacks go in the first round. I have a hard time believing that. I can't even think of a draft in 24 years where there's only 2 quarterbacks to go in the first round. But that tells you that the quarterback market isn't seen that high or that good this year in the draft. From what I've been told, the offensive line group is really good, and you can find your good player up and through the 3rd round. The receiver class is top heavy, so there's like 4 or 5 guys that people think can be legitimate good players, and then it falls off the face of the earth there. The running back class is supposed to be really good. There's edge rushers in this draft, but the interior guys it's supposed to be weak this year in the draft. The linebacker group is one of the best groups they've had in the draft for a number of years, which needed to happen because that group had been down for a while. It's a good group for safeties, from what I understand. So, it's going to be interesting. I can tell you one. I'm going to give you a little thing here. I would predict that there's going to be a lot of trades over the next 3 days. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, there are going to be a lot of trades because people are going to go to who they like. So if I'm sitting in the 2nd round at pick 32 and who I like on my draft board doesn't fit 32, I'm going to trade out of that because I've got 5 guys that I like in the 40 area. So you're going to see a lot of trades, I bet you, over Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Great insight. Andre Patterson joining us here on Nuanez Now, former Grizz and a longtime NFL coach, talking all things Dexter Lawrence trade, NFC East, and the NFL draft. Coach, I'll be in touch. Thanks so much for the time, though, here today, and good talking to you.
Well, thanks for having me.
There you go. Andre Patterson. That's cool. It's a great connection. If you missed the show last week, it was all about him, which was awesome because he spent so much time in the NFL around so many great players. I mean, if you cross paths with John Randall and Jared Allen, just those guys, you got stories, let alone if you coach guys like Leroy Glover and Courtney Brown and Greg Ellis, let alone if you coach guys like Dexter Lawrence. So Andre Patterson's been around all those guys. It was fun hearing his version of his NFL story last week on Nuanez Now. You can find that on our Wednesday ESPN Roundtable podcast from last week on the Nuanez Now podcast feed. But he wanted to connect again, and anytime he wants to connect, we're happy to have him because he's a great resource. Obviously, talking NFL, defensive line, pretty awesome to have him in the mix. And back here in Montana, he retired to Stevensville, and so he's living down in the Bitterroot. So we're going to keep that number on the top of our minds. I think it'd be fun to connect with him throughout the upcoming days and weeks and months when it comes to talking football here on Nuanez Now. So we're going to talk some basketball. I want to give you some more insight into what is going down with the University of Montana women's basketball team. I thought 4 key additions from the transfer portal. We'll get to know some of those young ladies, including 2 familiar names on the other side. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here. You're listening to ESPN 102.9 FM around Western Montana.
DeMorris Buick GMC is ready to help you safely travel Montana's scenic roads in comfort and style. Stop by DeMorris today and test drive some outstanding SUVs. Right now, take advantage of closeout pricing on the uniquely designed and well-equipped 2024 Buick Encore GX with models starting at $28,895. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to DeMorris.com to preview our inventory of 2024 Buick Encores and then pay a visit to DeMorris Buick GMC on West Broadway in Missoula, your family-owned hometown dealership for over 60 years.
It's easy to see why Montana is the treasure state. At the University of Montana, we look inside. We see an old truth with fresh eyes, that Montana's greatest treasure is its people. So whatever tomorrow brings, we meet it the only way we know how, with a mind for making. Because what's made in Montana is remaking the world.
Spring sports seasons around the Big Sky Conference come to a head over the next few weeks, and several teams from the Treasure State are in contention. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. The Grizz softball team swept Weber State in Ogden last weekend, moving their Big Sky record to 8-4 in the process. Sophomore catcher JoJo Christensen earned Big Sky Player of the Week honors by pounding out 8 hits in 15 plate appearances, including 7 extra base hits and 2 home runs. That sweep set up a regular season homestand where Montana could make history. If Grizz softball could take 2 out of 3 against Idaho State, UM will earn its first outright regular season softball title in the 11-year history of the program. Saturday's doubleheader begins at 1 p.m., while Sunday's single game begins at noon at the Grizz softball complex. The Grizz tennis team will look for its second consecutive Big Sky tournament title and the third in the program's history as UM heads to Phoenix with a head of steam. Montana has won 3 straight contests, including outlasting Montana State 5-2 in Bozeman on Saturday to secure the number 2 seed in the tournament. The Grizz play the highest remaining seed following Thursday's first round. The Montana State women's golf team is in the mix at the Big Sky Tournament at the Wigwam Resort in Litchfield, Arizona. The Cats are tied for second, 2 strokes behind Northern Arizona after shooting even par as a team on Monday. 3 Bobcats finished in the top 10 after day 1, led by Nora Seidel's 3 under 68. For more on spring sports, tune into Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
It's Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula. Watch the show statewide on SWX Montana Television.
Welcome back. 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Colter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Grizzly Disposal has one bin recycling. You can pick it up at your house twice a month. Don't wait. Add the service, switch the service, or both by calling 406-541-7171 or visiting GrizzlyDisposal.com. Grizzly Disposal, the only bears that should be in your garbage. I said this yesterday, but it's worth re-emphasizing. There's like a subset industry that is covering the NCAA transfer portal. Like, we do multiple segments a week during transfer portal, quote-unquote, seasons, because it's newsworthy, like where people are coming and going. It's just easy, low-hanging fruit, automatic news. But there are reporters at the national level where certain times a year, like that is 95% of the things that they are reporting on their various social medias or the stories that they're writing. It's just sort of crazy that this has become what it's become. We also don't spend a lot of time hashing out. Like, we'll give you the news brief of who's going where. And if it's a big-time player like Money Williams, for example, from the Grizz men's basketball team going to Boston College, well, that's worth some airtime, right? Like, hashing out what that means for the Grizz, what it means for Money Williams, what it means for Boston College. I think all those things are important. And he's a high-profile enough guy, multiple-time All-Big Sky Conference player, that I think that's an interesting conversation. Fringe players, like, that's the part I think that some people get annoyed about with this subset industry, is when a player, a guy or a gal, whatever, who has been at a place and they haven't really done much of anything, but then they get reported on at the same level as like an all-conference type of guy. I think that's where it kind of gets annoying. And I think there's another narrative here where people are just sort of annoyed by the never-ending nature of this. Like, for example, Jeff Goodman, who is a national reporter, he's covered college hoops forever. He just tweeted that Adam Miller is into the portal again. If you don't know who Adam Miller is, that's fine. But Adam Miller has played in 152 college basketball games. That's not the amount of games his team has played since he's been in college. He has played in 152 college basketball games. He played in 31 games at Illinois during the 2020-2021 season, so I think that gave him an extra year of eligibility because of the COVID. Next year, he transfers to LSU. He's injured. He misses the whole year, so then he gets a medical red shirt. So that's 2 hardship waivers. Then he plays in LSU for 33 games, Arizona State for 23 games, Arizona State for 30 games, Gonzaga last year for 35 games. The guy's played in 30-plus games 4 times, and he's played in over 20 games 5 times. So how does this guy still have eligibility left? I don't know. I think this is nothing against Adam Miller. This is a shot at the system. Like, why does that exist? That's crazy. If that annoys you, you're not alone. That's all to say. Sometimes there's these moments where you can see that it's going to be an impactful addition. I think that the Lady Grizz had one of those type of weekends when it comes to recruiting the portal this last weekend. Been well chronicled around here. The struggles of the Lady Grizz last year, they only won 9 games. It was only the second single-digit wins season that they've had in 50 years. Shannon Schwain's first year, Nate Harris's first year. Those are the only 2 years Lady Grizz have won 50 game or single-digit games in the last 50 years. So then the Lady Grizz cleaned house a little bit, right? A lot of the team was let's just say a mutual parting of ways, and some of those gals have matriculated and resurfaced at other schools in the Big Sky Conference. But they were set to return 6 players on the roster, and they signed 3 high school players, but they have to fill out the rest of the ranks. And this transfer portal spring window for basketball is tight. It's only open for a couple weeks. Well, there were several high-profile players from Montana that played high school basketball in Montana that went out of state for college that were then available in the portal. Brianna Williams was a former 4-star recruit who went to Maryland out of Billings Skyview. She was recruited heavily by both Montana and Montana State when she entered the portal out of Maryland, but she ends up going to Arizona. So that's not a win for either of the Montana schools. But I probably win for Brianna Williams, although Arizona really struggled last year women's basketball. Only won 3 games in the Big 12. But she might be able to have a big impact there. You had Elise Abey, who was playing at Idaho State. She transfers to Eastern Washington, so she went out of state and is staying out of state, the Laurel product, that is. Then you had Braden Gunlock from BYU. She's a Big Fork product. Spent a year at BYU. She's now back in Montana. She's going to Montana State. But then the other 2 that were sort of the headlining Montana girls that are playing abroad were Paige Loafing from Huntley Project, who was playing at Gonzaga, and Kennedy Moore, who is from Kalispell, who was playing at Wake Forest. Well, Lady Grizz got 2 of those. So 2 out of 5 is pretty good. Because there was a lot of speculation, like, are these gals going to come back to Montana? Well, 3 out of the 5 of them did. And then for Montana to get 2 out of those 5, those are good recruitment. That's good recruiting by Nate Harris and his staff. Loafing is an awesome player. I really enjoyed watching her in high school. She was a Class B superstar, was Gatorade Player of the Year during her time at Huntley Project. She led the Red Devils to their first ever Class B state championship. She out-dueled Madison O'Connor, which if you listen to this show regularly, I'm a huge fan of O'Connor as well. O'Connor's going to the Cats out of Baker. But I thought that state championship game, Loafing looked like the better player, and Huntley Project definitely looked like the better team. They really had Baker all out of sorts. And if not for that win by Huntley Project, Baker would probably be the 3-time defending Class B state champions. But instead, Holly Project broke up that run. So certainly impressive by Loafing to be able to carry him to those heights. She's a combo guard. She's a point guard who can really handle it and really pass it, but she can also really score it. She can score at all three levels. She's got a nasty pull-up jump shot from the mid-range. And I think she's going to be an impact player immediately. Like I think she's going to be a good player for Lady Grizz. Like she will be able to be a top-level type of talent in the Big Sky, I think. She played a little bit at Gonzaga this last year. She had one highlight where she hit a buzzer beater during the non-conference, but then her minutes tapered off. Came in at only about 8 minutes a game, only averaged about a bucket a game. But I think that with her being more of a focal point, I think that that's going to be a big boost for the Grizz. For Kennedy Moore, her recruitment to Wake Forest was totally random. When she was a junior, she led Flathead to the state championship game. They lost to Billings West. But then her senior year, she was good. But, I mean, and she was one of the best rebounders in the state. Averaged 14.8 points, 9.7 rebounds per game. But that was down a little bit from her scoring numbers of her junior year. But she's a three-sport athlete, played volleyball, ran track and field. But then before Wake Forest offered her, she was sort of considered a fringe Division I player. She was set to go to Montana Western, I think, if I'm remembering this correctly. And then her recruiting sort of blew up, but it was because Wake Forest offered her. The Montana schools hadn't really been in the mix. So it's a little bit odd because Wake Forest doesn't really recruit in Montana, so what's the connection there? But she ended up getting to Wake Forest as she played in 22 games as a freshman. Then last year, she played in 32 games and started 10 of them. Now, I know Wake Forest is not a powerhouse in women's basketball. They went 4-14 in the ACC last year, 14-18 overall. But you're playing in the ACC. Like if you're starting in the ACC, you're playing against really good talent. Like you're getting some really high-level reps, right? Moore ended up averaging 2.8 points, 2.5 rebounds per game. Her shooting splits were not great. She shot 33% from the floor, 30% from beyond the three-point arc. But my whole deal here is she's 6'2", a former competitive athlete in the high jump, so she can jump, she can move, played volleyball. She was a great rebounder in high school. That's one of the things that the Lady Grizz need the most. Like if you were projecting Kennedy Moore from Flathead directly to the Big Sky Conference and skip the part about playing in the ACC, I think she would have been an impactful rebounder pretty early on. Well, now you give her 2 years of practicing and playing in the ACC, and you'd expect that skill to probably improve a little bit. I do think the ACC is a huge jump from the Big Sky, so I do expect her to have pretty accelerated production coming from the ACC to the Big Sky. So I think that Loafing is somebody that can create her own shot, she can shoot in the flow of the offense, and she can create offense for others. Those are three things that were almost completely missing for the Lady Grizz last year. Moore is somebody that can rebound. That's something that was also almost completely missing for the Lady Grizz last year. Those are the two we're familiar with. Like I'm pretty confident Loafing's going to be an impactful Big Sky Conference player. I think Kennedy Moore has an above-average chance of being at least a solid player, if not a good player, in the Big Sky. Those are the two we're familiar with because I watched them in high school basketball. Well, then the Lady Grizz added two other, what I think are going to be key additions in the portal. Shea Shippen, who transfers from Columbia. That's the Columbia, the Ivy League version of Columbia. She went to Skyline High School in Idaho Falls, and she's the all-time leading scorer in the history of the state of Idaho in prep basketball. She was a 13-time varsity letter winner. That is unprecedented. There's only 12 sports seasons in your high school career. So to earn 13 varsity letters, that means you had to letter in something. That means you had to letter in two sports in one season at one point. She got 13 letters. So she lettered in volleyball 4 times, basketball 4 times, and I'm not sure between track, tennis, and golf, but she managed to letter in almost all of them. Oh, by the way, she poured in 2,372 points on the basketball court and also grabbed over 1,000 rebounds, over 300 assists, over 250 steals. She averaged 22.5 points and 10 rebounds per game in her high school career, 4-time first-team All-State, and the 2025 Idaho State Gatorade Player of the Year. If the Lady Grizz got her out of high school, that would be a big-time recruit. But the fact that she was able to cut her teeth for a year at Columbia, I think that's pretty darn impressive. I think Shea Shippen is going to be an impact player almost immediately for the Lady Grizz as well. She also has an interesting athletic lineage. Her dad played basketball at BYU. Her mom played basketball at San Diego State and BYU. Her brother currently plays men's basketball at Hartnell College. Her grandmother was a Boise State volleyball player. Her uncle played for Colorado State. I mean, this bio goes on and on and on. Her aunt also played at BYU. So there's a whole bunch of impressive athletic genes in the Shippen family. So I thought that was a really interesting bio. And again, like Skyline High School in Idaho Falls, it's pretty comparable to the level of basketball you're going to see in Montana high school basketball. So I think if you're getting one of the best players in the state of Idaho, I think that's a good fit for the Big Sky Conference level of hoops. And finally, the fourth transfer is Dom Neslin. She's from Phoenix. She's played at High Point, though, the last 2 years. She's a starter at High Point last year. High Point's an NCAA tournament team back-to-back years. So, again, if you're a D1 starter, you're getting good experience. And I think High Point playing in a league that's probably a little bit higher level in the Big Sky Conference. So I think that Neslin comes in with, she's been a little bit battle-tested, playing in that conference, playing at a higher level, playing in the NCAA tournament. All told, again, projections, like if I knew the absolute solid projection or the absolute formula to getting surefire recruits either out of the high school ranks or out of the college ranks in the portal, I'd be a billionaire. I mean, you could bottle this up and sell it. I mean, you'd be making so much money, it'd be silly. But I do think that I don't know how these young ladies are going to project across the board. I lean towards well. I'm almost certain Loafing's going to be really good, and I think given a resume, I think Shippen is going to be pretty good as well. But what I do know is that these players are better than the players that they're replacing on the Lady Grizz. I know that's harsh, probably, but in the revenue sharing era where these players are going to be slotted into spots within a rotation where they need to earn the money that they are being paid, and you need to get production out of those slots because everybody's job, whether you're the player that's getting the rev share or the coaches, everybody's job's up for grabs. That's the cutthroat nature of the business that is college sports now. So I do think that they had to make moves, and I do think they did make moves. I think it's good additions for Lady Grizz women's basketball. As part of the conversation, probably presented by Blackfoot Communications, Blackfoot has been helping Montanans make strong connections for more than 70 years, excuse me. With its headquarters in both Missoula and Bozeman, Blackfoot has been providing steady, high-quality jobs to Western Montanans for decades. As your caring neighbor, Blackfoot shows their support by giving back to local organizations, causes, and schools in ways that truly matter. Blackfoot's mission is to connect people, businesses, and communities. Connect more with Blackfoot Communications. To find out more about how Blackfoot can improve your connection to your community, visit blackfoot.com. Take a break, come back. Treasure State Stars, some of the best individual performances from the week that was across the state of Montana. That's next. Keep it right here. 129 ESPN Radio.
Les Schwab changed the tire game more than 70 years ago. Today, we still believe you should get more from less. Like more hustle, less hassle. More of the best service around, less of the runaround. Because we include America's best tire warranty in every tire we sell. So you get more unbeatable warranty, less charging you extra. It's why we're more than proud to say, you get more from less.
What do you expect me to say to her? She's getting married in 30 minutes.
We're doing everything we can.
John, can you hear me? John.
Mountain Town Vacation Rental Management, your local partner for vacation rental success. We provide a fully customized hosting experience tailored to your needs and goals. Your home is listed on every major site, helping you maximize visibility and bookings. And our local team is available 24/7 to handle guest needs and booking inquiries. Let us take the stress out of managing your vacation home. Contact us today at mountaintownvrm.com or give us a call at 406-369-3080.
This is Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio Missoula.
Welcome back. 129 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Time for our Treasure State Stars, probably presented by Parkside Credit Union. Parkside Credit Union, a great place in western Montana to get a loan because Parkside Credit Union loves to say yes. Treasure State Star number 1, Jack Ryan. He's a Billings West senior-to-be, and he recently committed to the Montana Grizzlies. That's the latest in the boat for Bobby Kennedy. I think that's 6 in-state commits, 8 verbal commits overall. Ryan is a linebacker currently for the Golden Bears, probably projects more like a nickel safety type at the next level. Montana State was in the mix a little bit. Montana offered a scholarship first, and it sounds like that was a key factor here. I'm not sure where Jack Ryan fits into the Ryan family in Billings. Kyle Ryan was a great linebacker for the Grizz when I was in school. Pat Ryan is also part of that same family, I think. He was a great linebacker at Billings West, then went to play for Notre Dame. I don't know if Jack Ryan's part of that family, but I'm sort of assuming that he is. So I think it's a good get for the Grizz, and more than anything, it's an inroad at Billings West because, I mean, the Cats had 6 players, including 5 starters from Billings West High School on their national championship team last year. The Dowler brothers, Caden and Taco. Paul Brott was an All-American defensive tackle. Neil Daly, starting inside linebacker. Braden Zimmer was All-American left tackle. That's 5 really good players. So to get a guy out of Billings West, and that has been sort of a stronghold for the Cats as of late, it's a good swing back for the Grizz. Treasure State Star number 2. This is from the Big Sky Women's Golf Championships. Nora Seidel of Montana State. She remains in 3rd place overall. She's a tie for third. She smoked a 68 yesterday, -3 yesterday. She shot a 73 today, so that's 2 over, but she still sits under par. She's one of 4 players that currently sits under par right now. This is being played at the Wigwam Resort, Litchfield Park, Arizona. But the Cats did not have a great day. They were even par as a team yesterday, and they trailed Northern Arizona by only 2 strokes. NAU got to 3 under as a team. They were 1 under as a team today. Northern Colorado kept pace. Northern Colorado was even yesterday, 2 over today. But the Cats really fell off the pace that NAU's setting. Cats were 15 over today. So Seidel, 3 over, but then a whole smattering of others that were over par. So that really hurt the Cats in terms of their pursuit of the Team Big Sky Championship. But Nora Seidel remains in the mix, one of only 4 players under par right now at the in the individual leaderboard there at the Big Sky Women's Golf Championships. Thursday star number 3, Carson Bites. He set a couple more school records over the weekend. He is a sprinter from Missoula who runs for the Grizz track team. Bites ran 10.17 seconds in the 100 meters. That shattered a school record at Montana. He also ran 20.45 seconds in the 200 meters. That's a record that stood for almost 90 years at Montana. So to break those records, pretty dang impressive. Bites was a former walk-on. The fact that he's taking this thing to the next level, I mean, 10.1 is borderline world-class fast in the 100 meters, and 20.4 is definitely world-class fast in the 200 meters. Been pretty impressive to see what Doug Fraley, the head coach of the Grizz track team, the influence he has had on the sprints and the pole vaulting and the javelin specifically has been really, really fun to watch and really, really impressive to see. Speaking of the javelin, Treasure State star number 4, Hunter Loesch. He hails from Corvallis, Montana. He's a true freshman for the Grizz track team. The coveted mark, the 70-meter mark, that's sort of the mark that everybody wants to get to in Big Sky Conference collegiate track. Loesch, who's only a freshman, he hit it for the second time this year. He throws 230 feet 7 inches. So that's well over the 70-meter mark. And that's going to be a regional qualifying mark for Loesch in his first collegiate season. So he's certainly taking this thing to the next level. He was throwing in the 210s last year as a high school senior. He was the Gatorade Athlete of the Year last year at Corvallis High School. But he's certainly off to a great start. Thursday star number 5, Carolyn Hawks. She's been on this show before. She's an outstanding sprinter. She set the school record in the 400 meters for Montana State down in California this last weekend. She also ran legs on the 4x100 and 4x400 meter relay teams as well. And they both set school records too. So she was a part of 3 school record times for Montana State. And she continues to have an outstanding senior year there for MSU. And the last one of track to highlight, Sydney Brewster. There's only been 4 weeks of outdoor track and field so far for Big Sky Conference awards, and Sydney Brewster has won 3 of the weekly awards on the field side of things. She went over 55 feet in the shot put in her most recent performance, and she has a top 15 throw in the country so far this year. But pretty impressive. She's been able to take home the weekly awards each of the last, 3 out of the last 4 weeks. Treasure State star number 7, Jess Lockwood. He's one of the pound-for-pound best athletes in Montana. He's a bull rider, former world champion, and the spring rodeo season for the professional ranks got off to a start on this weekend. At the rodeo in Billings, Lockwood blew the roof off the place. He had a ride of 91.9 actually is what it came in at, but basically 92 to win the opening night. The Billings crowd loved it. I mean, he's from nowhere, Bullberg, Montana, but pretty cool. There's a guy of that caliber of a bull rider from here in the Treasure State. And then Treasure State star number 8, we just got to highlight this because I know there's a lot of people that are interested in this young man's story. Tommy Running Rabbit was a running back out of Browning, Montana, who was a preferred walk-on to the Grizz football team. Last year, he had his moment in the sun when he scored a touchdown against Indiana State. People from Browning, people from the Blackfeet Nation, they were loving this story. Native American kid, playing for the Grizz. I mean, he was the first Blackfeet to ever score a touchdown for the Grizz, but I bet you that news went viral on the reservation like that, like wildfire, truly. Well, Tommy Running Rabbit was not there at the spring game, so we asked around, and it sounds like he stepped away from football to concentrate on his academics. He wants to pursue pharmacy school, and then he confirmed that on his personal Facebook page. So good job by Tommy Running Rabbit for chasing his dreams, and hopefully the academic side of things goes well. But certainly a great story, and I know people around Montana, especially those that follow all the indigenous great athletes that come out of the state of Montana, are probably sad to see Tommy Running Rabbit step away from his football pursuits. But good luck to him, and sounds like he's got his priorities straight. Hour on the books, hour 2 coming at you. We'll talk all things Bobcat and Grizz football. That's next. Keep it right here. It's 129 ESPN Radio.
Life can change in an instant. If you've been hurt in an accident, suffered from medical negligence, or are facing criminal charges, you don't have to face it alone. At Ryan Miller & Coburn, we're here to listen and fight for you. We're your neighbors, traveling across Montana to stand by your side as your link to justice. Real people, real help, right here in Montana. Ryan Miller & Coburn, your Montana attorneys.
DeMorris Buick GMC is ready to help you safely travel Montana's scenic roads in comfort and style. Stop by DeMorris today and test drive some outstanding SUVs. Right now, take advantage of closeout pricing on the exceptionally designed 2024 Buick Envision with models starting at $39,795. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to DeMorris.com to preview our inventory of 2024 Buick Envisions and then pay a visit to DeMorris Buick GMC on West Broadway in Missoula, your family-owned hometown dealership for over 60 years.
Life's about the journey, not the destination, right? Why can't it be about both?
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Spring sports seasons around the Big Sky Conference come to a head over the next few weeks, and several teams from the Treasure State are in contention. Hello, I am Coulter Nuanez. The Grizz softball team swept Weber State in Ogden last weekend, moving their Big Sky record to 8-4 in the process. Sophomore catcher JoJo Christensen earned Big Sky Player of the Week honors by pounding out 8 hits in 15 plate appearances, including 7 extra base hits and 2 home runs. That sweep set up a regular season homestand where Montana could make history. If Grizz softball could take 2 out of 3 against Idaho State, UM will earn its first outright regular season softball title in the 11-year history of the program. Saturday's doubleheader begins at 1 p.m., while Sunday's single game begins at noon at the Grizz softball complex. The Grizz tennis team will look for its second consecutive Big Sky Tournament title and the third in the program's history as UM heads to Phoenix with a head of steam. Montana has won 3 straight contests, including outlasting Montana State 5-2 in Bozeman on Saturday to secure the number 2 seed in the tournament. The Grizz play the highest remaining seed following Thursday's first round. The Montana State women's golf team is in the mix at the Big Sky Tournament at the Wigwam Resort in Litchfield, Arizona. The Cats are tied for second, 2 strokes behind Northern Arizona after shooting even par as a team on Monday. 3 Bobcats finished in the top 10 after day 1, led by Nora Seidel's 3 under 68. More on spring sports. Tune into Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio.
Welcome back. 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app, although we are not on SWX now because a little high school baseball going on. Hellgate Sentinel. Pretty cool they have high school baseball now in the state of Montana. I really wish that would have been a thing when I was in high school. I would have loved that. We will certainly be following along with high school baseball and some of the other high school stuff that's going on. We'll dive into that a little bit more later on this week and into next week as well. And then once May gets rolling, that'll be center stage, sort of the spotlight. If you're missing the show today so far, really fun having Andre Patterson on. Last week, he came on, and it was all about him. He's a former Grizz who then spent 40-plus years as a collegiate and NFL coach. He's a defensive line coach most recently for the New York Giants. This week, he came on to talk about his former team because the Giants traded Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals. So that certainly was a blockbuster that happened over the weekend. And Patterson was the D-line coach there in New York, so he knows Dexter very well and knows quite a bit about the ins and outs of that trade. So that was some great insight from him. We also talked some Lady Grizz basketball and the quality of transfers that I believe that were added to the Lady Grizz roster this last weekend. With the addition of 4 players, including 2 from Montana, Paige Loafing from Helly Project and Kennedy Moore from Flathead. We also gave you our most recent Treasure State Stars, highlighting some of the best individual performances and storylines from around the state of Montana. All that can be found on the Nuanez Now podcast, which is available on all your various podcast hosting platforms. Please rate, review, subscribe, and appreciate you for tuning in no matter how you're tuning in here. On Nuanez Now. We are coming to you, as always, through the Grizzly Disposal Studio. And if you want to be a part of the show, 406-888-1029. That's 888-1029. And if you know me, you can just text my phone as well. So thanks to one of our loyal listeners, Jim. I was asking about where does Jack Ryan, recent Grizz commit from Billings West, fit into the Ryan family tree. Kyle Ryan, Casey Ryan were great players for the Grizz. In the early to mid 2000s. Pat Ryan was a great player out of Billings West who then went and played at Notre Dame. It sounds like Kyle is Jack's uncle, and it sounds like Pat is his father. So good football stock there. So thanks to Jim for reaching out and helping us weave it all together. If you'd like to give us some feedback, some insight, tell me where I screwed up, 406-888-1029. That's 888-1029. All guests will join us via the ESPN MT phone line, and please call it or text it at any time. So yesterday I was talking about the number one, the top factors I'm going to be watching when I go to the Bobcat spring game on Saturday, and I wanted to continue to hash that out a little bit We highlighted yesterday the offensive line, particularly the battle for the interior spots. I think Burke Mastel, well, I know Burke Mastel is going to be one of those three interior spots. It's just a matter of if he needs to play center or if he gets to play guard. I shouldn't say needs or gets. Where is he best at and where is the other best guys? If Aiden Kaplan is good enough to play center, then can Mastel play guard? And then what does that do to the other guard spot? If Mastel is the guy at center, then who emerges as the other guard spots? Dylan Rollins is a guy that is a highly regarded guy out of Missoula Sentinel. Montana Gatorade Player of the Year, took his talents to BYU, then he went on a mission. Now he's been back there, and he's played quite a bit of football for not being a starter there on the offensive line, so he's certainly a front runner. Everett Carr was a guy who started last year for a couple games. He's out of Bozeman High School, so he's a guy that should be in the mix heavily as well. Tommy Nielsen, a walk-on kid out of Missoula Hellgate, he's made some big strides, so he's a guy that could be in the mix. Dalton Noble, who's a kid out of Boulder, Montana, he also should be in the mix. So that's a lot of guys to be in the mix there for that interior. So who becomes the right guy? Who becomes the guy that fits the spot the best? That's the number one thing I'm watching on the offensive side for the Cats. I think we sort of know what they got at quarterback with Justin Lampson, what they got at running back with Adam Jones, what they got at receiver with Taco Dowler, Dane Steele, Jabez Woods, what they got at tight end in Rocky Lencioni and Hunter Schlepp. All the skill guys are pretty dang good. The offensive line is going to be good. The Cats have been good on the offensive line for 20 years, basically. But who's playing where, who's playing what, who is the definitive top five? That's certainly interesting to me. Defensively, it's all about the secondary. I know the defensive line loses four seniors, but I think they have a whole bunch of talented guys waiting in the wings, including some guys with some strong Montana roots. Zach Cruz from Missoula Sentinel should be the headliner. Talon Marsh, former Gatorade Player of the Year on the defensive line. He should be one of the best guys in the middle of the defensive line. Zach Black has played a bunch at defensive tackle. Dom Solano has played a bunch at defensive end. And Hunter Charbonneau is a guy that's also played on the interior a fair amount. Another Montana guy from Fairview, Montana. So I think they have five guys that are sort of waiting in the wings right there. And then Seth Brock is another guy that's sort of emerging and coming along as a defensive end too. So I think they have 6-7 guys that are viable candidates to be heavily in the rotation on that defensive front if you're Montana State. But it's the back end that I'm really, really interested in seeing. The corners that Montana State had was that's what tied it all together last year for the Cats. The fact that they had guys that could run and hit and were willing tacklers, that could also pick up a pretty sophisticated defensive scheme and employ it as just freshmen and sophomores. I thought that unlocked everything else for Montana State. Like it's a chicken or the egg scenario, right? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, a great pass rush or a stout defensive front that can stop the run and that helping out the corners and the safeties in coverage? Or the pass rush and the great run prowess because you have such great players at safety and corner? I don't know if there is an answer to what comes first, the chicken or the egg in that scenario. But I do think that the corners that Montana State had last year unlocked a whole bunch of stuff. And it wasn't necessarily just the coverage. It was the fact that they could play a shell quite often, and then those corners were not being exploited in one-on-one situations that often. And when there was plays made underneath, pass completions, or guys running free underneath that shell coverage, the fact that Seth Johnson, Carson Williams, and Jace McMillan were all willing to come up and tackle, but also that they were good tacklers, that's what unlocked everything for Montana State's defense last year. So I'm so interested to see who are the guys emerging on that back end. That group includes Nuanez Now 1029 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. My list of guys that I've been hearing are making noise includes Tim Thomas, who's a guy who was he was like the next guy outside that rotation. I think we know that Taden Gray is going to be the starting nickel for Montana State. J.J. Dolan broke his leg against the Grizz. He was sort of between free safety and nickel last year, but he was a starter. He's a kid from Missoula as well. When Dolan gets back, he's going to be in the mix. I think we know Gray is going to be the nickel. And I think Takari Carr is going to be somewhere in the mix with the corners as well because he's a veteran guy. Who else, though? They like to play 3 or 4 corners. So if Carr is one, I think Tim Thomas has probably the upside and maybe the pedigree to be one. He's a guy that Brent Vigen talked about by name last year as he was sort of making his way and fighting to get a little bit of playing time. The only transfer Montana State brought in is Gianni Edwards from Arizona. So I think he's a guy that might be in the mix there too. Corey Boyd played a little bit as well. Who emerges? You're not getting recruited to play corner at the D1 level unless you have some pretty strong intangible traits. And Montana State has proven that they're really good at recruiting that spot. So I think the guys that rise to the occasion are the guys that either pick up the defense the quickest or the guys that are flexible, position versatility, situational versatility. More than anything, though, competitive. And who is going to tackle? I know Sean Howe is off to Pittsburgh to coach with the defensive staff for Mike McCarthy and the Steelers. So a new defensive coordinator in the fold in Bobby Daly, but Bobby Daly's the old defensive coordinator. He was there as the DC in 2024. He's a Bobcat alum. He just wasn't there last year. Daly, if you're analyzing, like, just compare and contrast 24 defense to the 25 defense for MSU, Daly liked to blitz a lot more than Howe did. Part of that's because Howe had such a veteran defensive line that could sort of just manufacture pressure themselves. If you are blitzing more than all the corners on islands more, does that make then coverage more important than tackling? I'm not sure. I don't know how to rank it. It's going to be interesting to see how it all develops. But I do think that some of those guys are going to be some of those corners are going to have an elevated opportunity for sure. That's certainly who I'm going to have my eyes on the most when it comes to the defense for Montana State. And certainly leading the way, Marcus Coleman, who's a young man out of Spring, Texas, who I've heard a lot of good things about. Corey Boyd, he's a sophomore now. He's out of Dallas, Texas. He's another guy that was sort of in that mix with those elite players that transferred to the Power Four. Johnny Edwards is the young man who's a transfer from Arizona. He's also from Texas. You can see a trend here, right? They're getting these DBs from one state, basically, Texas, right? Tim Thomas, Houston. Brendan Ross, Rockwell, Texas, which is right right outside of Dallas. So all those guys, I think, are going to be in the mix. So I'm just excited to see who's the one rising up. Again, I think that your top group, the top competition, I think Carr is going to for sure be a front runner because he's a senior. So then who out of Marcus Coleman, Corey Boyd, Johnny Edwards, Brandon Ross, and Tim Thomas, who out of those guys emerges to be in that next top 2 or 3? That's going to be fun to watch. One guy hasn't got a ton of run, who I think was a solid player a year ago for Montana State and has some really good experience coming back, is Bryant Meredith. He played one of the safety spots, and I can't remember if he got hurt or what, but Caden Dowler was one of the guys, and Meredith was the other, and J.J. Dolan was in that mix as well. But Meredith had a big pick against NAU. But he's a guy that's been in the program. The guy that came to him from junior college, so he's a little bit more veteran. But he's a guy that also could be in the mix depending on who emerges as the top guys on that back end at safety. Takiula Kepa was hurt early in the year last year after winning the starting job out of camp. You know Caden Dowler is going to be a guy. He's the reigning Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year, but he's not participating in this spring ball because of the shoulder injury that he had last fall. Coulter Petrie is another guy that stepped up big time down the stretch last year for the Cats and into the playoffs and even through the national championship game. He's more of he's a safety nickel type, but he was subbing in for Dowler when Dowler went down in both the Super Bowl and the national championship game. So I think he's a guy that could have an elevator role as well. And then the last guy on the defensive back end that I think could be a great player. I actually think body type wise, I would probably move him to linebacker. But they obviously know what they're doing there at Montana State. They won the national championship last year. But it's Mason Deathman. He's Brockton, Montana native. Played at Floyd Medicine Lake, which is a 6-man high school. Deathman was great on special teams last year. As a sophomore, he's listed at 6'4", 205 pounds. He's got great size. I just wonder what that guy could be like if he got up to 215 or 220 with that frame. And, I mean, obviously he's got good speed if he can play in the secondary. So he's a guy I've heard some flashes. The guys that I've heard are making waves so far in this spring camp, for Montana State, that are maybe younger guys, include on the back end Marcus Coleman, Gianni Edwards, Tim Thomas, and Mason Deathman. Takiula Kepa's been taking some reps at corner as well, based on what I've been hearing. But then the guys up front that I'm really excited to see is, first of all, Seth Brock is as a guy that flashed to me last spring. I talked about him as one of my standout guys of last year's spring game. He had the huge special teams play against South Dakota State last year. That play ended up not being as impactful as it could have been because the Cats let that game slip away and they lost it at home. It was their first home loss in years. But that was not the fault of Brock. He scooped up a blocked punt and housed it in this huge momentum swing of a third into the fourth quarter. But I think Brock has, I don't want to put too much pressure on this kid, but I think he has NFL intangibles. He's 6'5". He's got a lean, long frame. He's got a long ways to go before he's even close to NFL good, right? But I just think he's got a great frame. He's got great bend, great explosion, great athleticism. He's a freak athlete, and I think he's a guy that's sort of that next guy up front at the edge spot, sort of waiting his turn behind Zach Cruz and Dom Solano. But Cruz and Solano were that guy last year, so I think that Seth Brock will sort of slide into that role. Josiah Oswega is another one that I'm really interested to see. He's a defensive tackle. He's out of Western Washington. The dude's 6'4", over 300 pounds already, as I think just a redshirt freshman. So he's got a ton of mass to work with, a ton of strength to work with. He's a guy that's certainly I've been hearing from people that have been going to practice and watching practice that he's a guy that's really hard to block and that he's going to be hard to keep off the field on the interior of the Montana State defensive line. Well, it's now 102.9 ESPN Radio. This part of the conversation probably presented by Cash One Pawn. Cash One Pawn, the premier pawn shop in the state of Montana. Shop online for everything from firearms to power tools to jewelry by visiting Cash One Pawn. That's cash1pawn.com. Give you some of the players that have been making waves on the offensive side and give you some thoughts on the Grizz from a coaching staff perspective. Next, lots of football talk here today. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here. It's 102.9 ESPN Radio.
What do you expect me to say to her? She's getting married in 30 minutes.
We're doing everything we can.
John, can you hear me? John.
At Shields, we're anglers, endlessly seeking and refining techniques. We're hunters and storytellers, because we've been out there. We're experts that put products and gear to the test, so we can share that knowledge with you. At Shields, we understand your outdoor journey and the path you're on, because we walk it too, every step of the way. Shields, right there with you.
Mountain Town Vacation Rental Management, your local partner for vacation rental success. We provide a fully customized hosting experience tailored to your needs and goals. Your home is listed on every major site, helping you maximize visibility and bookings. And our local team is available 24/7 to handle guest needs and booking inquiries. Let us take the stress out of managing your vacation home. Contact us today at mountaintownvrm.com or give us a call at 406-369-3080.
The rare moments in life, they're not just few and far between. They're meant to be treasured.
Bring the whole family to the Stone of Accord for a wonderful brunch. From traditional comfort food to eclectic specials, there's something for everyone to enjoy. And it wouldn't be a proper Missoula brunch without an Irish coffee and a mimosa. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino. At the Stone of Accord, we use the freshest ingredients to create our homemade traditional Irish classics, fresh salads, and creative specials. Come enjoy our warm, family-friendly atmosphere. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Spring sports seasons around the Big Sky Conference come to a head over the next few weeks, and several teams from the Treasure State are in contention. Hello, I am Coulter Nuanez. The Grizz softball team swept Weber State in Ogden last weekend, moving their Big Sky record to 8-4 in the process. Sophomore catcher JoJo Christensen earned Big Sky Player of the Week honors by pounding out 8 hits in 15 plate appearances, including 7 extra base hits and 2 home runs. That sweep set up a regular season homestand where Montana could make history. If Grizz softball could take 2 out of 3 against Idaho State, UM will earn its first outright regular season softball title in the 11-year history of the program. Saturday's doubleheader begins at 1 p.m., while Sunday's single game begins at noon at the Grizz softball complex. The Grizz tennis team will look for its second consecutive Big Sky tournament title and the third in the program's history as UM heads to Phoenix with a head of steam. Montana has won 3 straight contests, including outlasting Montana State 5-2 in Bozeman on Saturday to secure the number 2 seed in the tournament. The Grizz play the highest remaining seed following Thursday's first round. The Montana State women's golf team is in the mix at the Big Sky tournament at the Wigwam Resort in Litchfield, Arizona. The Cats are tied for second, 2 strokes behind Northern Arizona after shooting even par as a team on Monday. 3 Bobcats finished in the top 10 after day 1, led by Nora Seidel's 3 under 68. More on spring sports. Tune in to Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
It's Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula. Watch the show statewide on SWX Montana Television.
Welcome back. 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. Appreciate you for hanging with us. I'm Coulter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran-owned, and the only Bears that should be in your garbage. We'll have some Grizz softball coverage for you later on this week. Grizz are hosting a pivotal 3-game series this weekend against Idaho State. The first to win 2 wins the conference. Montana's been to the NCAA Regional before, but as an at-large bid. They've never earned the auto bid or won the outright league championships. So this is a huge opportunity for Grizz softball. We also are going to have Doug Fraley, the head coach of the Grizz track team, on the show, because I'm really interested in just the way that he's been able to get some of these athletes to go to the next level. Carson Bites ran a 10.17 in the 100 meters and a 20.45 in the 200 meters. Those are ridiculously good times for Big Sky Conference athletes. So I'm excited to have Doug Fraley on the show. I'm recording that with him tomorrow, so we'll fit it in somewhere here between Wednesday or Thursday. Our ESPN Roundtable tomorrow will feature a couple of assistant coaches from Montana State on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Matt Smith, the offensive line coach, John Baptiste, on the defensive line. Both those guys, I think they have groups that are probably the 2 most intriguing groups other than the secondary there at MSU. So we'll have those guys on for our ESPN Roundtable tomorrow to help preview the Grizz or the Bobcat spring game coming up in Bozeman on Saturday afternoon. Speaking of the Bobcats, one piece of coaching news: Shan Schillinger is the head coach at the University of Mary. He's a former Grizz, but he just hired a former Bobcat to be his offensive line coach. Mike Person, who's a friend of the show, favorite of mine, is headed to North Dakota to coach for Schillinger. These guys knew each other from the high school days. Schillinger was a great player for the Grizz, who then went on to get drafted and play in the NFL. Person was a great player for the Cats out of Glendive, Montana, who then went on to get drafted and play in the NFL as well. This will be the 4th year for Schillinger as his head coach. And I think Person's a great hire. Person's, he's worked in the NFL as a quality control guy, worked for the Dolphins. He also has lived in Columbus, Ohio, where he's coached high school football, but also he has his own offensive line academy. So he certainly knows the ropes, knows how to coach, and I think he's got a lot of acumen as a guy that played in the NFL for 9 years. Schillinger told MontanaSports.com, "We're very fortunate to have a guy who played at a high level and has coached at a high level. Mike played center guard and tackle in the NFL, and he's coached the technique side at all those spots. His experience and the way he relates to our players is going to be a big advantage for us up front." So cool to see a couple former Montana guys. They're Montana guys always, right? But fun to see those guys doing well and also just giving back to the game, right? You could. It's hard to scratch the itch, right? But if you play in the NFL for 9 years, you make some good money. You could just walk away. But I think that the fact that those guys are doing it and giving back, let's be honest. You're not making a ton of money at the University of Mary, so you're doing it for love of the game, for the competition, to build some stuff. So I think that's all wins for those guys, but also for the game of football. Crosstown baseball going on SWX right now. Hillgate's up 3-0 over Sentinel. This is being played at Lindbergh Craig Field, the Missoula Mavs stadium. So we'll keep you up to date with what's going on there. Let's keep on talking football. When it comes to the Bobcat spring game, I gave you my defensive young guys that I'm excited to watch. I also have some young guys on offense that I'm excited to watch. I broke down a lot of the offensive line, but a lot of that was the interior. I'm excited to see Aiden Kaplan because he was a highly recruited guy out of Texas who they've been sort of grooming to be their center of the future. So is he ready to be the center of the present? That'll certainly be an interesting thing to observe. But the number one young guy that I've heard a lot of great things about is Nate Thornton. He was also a highly recruited guy out of North Kitsap High School, which is a powerhouse in Western Washington. The Cats have done this more than the Grizz, but a lot of times when there's a really outstanding young guy, they'll practice them on the varsity, quote-unquote, so to speak, while redshirting them. So that means that they're like a part of the top 8 or 10 offensive linemen, and they're part of the travel roster more often than not, but there's not a plan to play them in the game unless they need to, right? Sort of like an emergency situation. Well, that's where Thornton was at last year, and now he's a guy that could be in the mix, but I think he's a tackle. He's 6'4", 280 pounds. I think he's a tackle, so that he might just be a year away for when he can slide in at that right tackle spot with Titan Fleischman. Who knows what happens with Braden Zimmer? He's only a sophomore. I know he got a whole bunch of six-figure offers to jump in the portal, but he ended up staying at Montana State. Will he be there for 3 more years? I don't know. I'd put the odds at low, but the Cats have done a good job keeping guys around. I just think Thornton will be the next guy up at one of those 2 tackle spots. And I'm excited to see him get some reps in this spring game on Saturday. Kaplan's the other one I had listed as the offensive line. Like, those 2 guys are like their most touted, freshman or sophomore type guys that have been in the program now for a couple years. So where are they at in terms of their development? At running back, it really interested to get eyes on Cale Breslin. He's a transfer from BYU. He was with the Cats last year. But he's a big-bodied back. He's 6 feet tall, over 200 pounds. His film looked good coming out of high school. And I just think that Montana State, with the way they run the ball, last year the fact that they gave Adam Jones and Julius Davis exactly 175 carries each, and those guys both stayed healthy, that is such an anomaly. Like, that is such a scenario, such a difficult scenario to replicate. Jones is going to be the headliner this year, and you want to hope that he stays healthy, and he's been super durable his first 2 years there at MSU. But you have to have some, relief pitcher, so to speak, to take some of the miles off of Jones. I don't think you want to give that guy 250 or 300 carries because it's just going to grind him to dust. So who's the next guy up? Probably Colson Kuhn is the next guy up. Kuhn is a really aggressive runner, kid out of Wyoming that I think has a lot of spirit, a lot of tenacity. But I think you got to have 3 or 4. Jared White, you know what you got there. He's a senior. He's been around your program. He's contributed. He's been productive. He's scored touchdowns. Like, when he's had his number called, he's been very good. I mean, he had like a 600-yard rushing season a couple years back. And he's just sort of been buried because he is not Adam Jones and not Julius Davis. But I think that the guy that could be the guy that could make his way into that is Cale Breslin. Like, I would almost be certain that we know Jones is the headliner. We know Colson Kuhn is probably the defined backup. You know what Jared White can do, and he's certainly going to be ready if called upon. Is Breslin good enough to make the Cats consider playing 4 ball carriers? I think that's a big question, and I think if Breslin is good enough, I mean, he's got the FBS credentials. Again, he played at BYU. So I think if he is good enough, that it gives you a lot more depth, but it also maybe gives you a lot more leeway. The other guy that I'm interested to see there is Malachi Klonch, who's out of Billings West High School. He's a slasher type, kind of like Jones, honestly. So how good is he, and is he a guy that's ready to push? I wouldn't really expect more than 5 guys to get touches, and probably more like 3.5. But who is that? Who's the half? If it's Jones and then Kuhn, then who's the next guys in the pecking order? That's what I really want to see. And I think the primary candidates are Jared White, Cale Breslin, and Malachi Klonch. You know what you got in White, so I think you're going to see a lot of reps from Breslin and Klonch. I think that's going to be a fun element to watch during the spring game at Montana State on Saturday. Well, it's down 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. One guy I've been hearing a lot about from the receiver ranks is Parker Mady. He's from University Place, Washington, went to Curtis High School, which is a powerhouse on the west side of Washington. They've always had good football there. Bo Baldwin, former Eastern Washington head coach, was a Curtis High alum, if I'm remembering correctly. I've just heard a lot of scuttle that Mady's been making plays during practice. So, again, how many guys are you going to have reps for, right? I mean, think about this. Last year, the 3 starting receivers for the Cats were Taco Dowler, who had a huge year and was an all-conference guy. Ryan King, who was a former Georgia Tech transfer. And Chris Long, who was a former Rutgers transfer. Those guys, Long and King, hardly got any balls because Dane Steele and Jabez Woods rose up, and even though Long and King were the quote-unquote starters, Woods and Steele got all the looks alongside Dowler, and then, of course, alongside the prolific tight ends led by Rocky Lancioni that Montana State featured last year. Well, you know you got Dowler, you know you got Steele, you know you got Woods. Who's next? And how many do they have room for to get into the offense? I think the primary candidates include some young guys. Jordan Reed is not a young guy. He's a senior, but he's young to the position. He's 6'6" guy who came in as a quarterback. He had a bunch of injuries, but they switched him to receiver, and he stayed around, I should say. He's also stood around, unfortunately. But he stayed around. He's a great athlete at 6'6". He can jump. He's got good ball skills. So where does he fit in the mix? Can he fit in the mix? That'd be a different body type. Him and Javonte King are the two guys that are just built different. Javonte King, 6'4", 220. Jordan Reed, 6'6", 228. Those guys are a lot different than Taco Dowler. Dowler's lightning in a bottle, but he's 5'9", 170, right? Dane Steele is also a really explosive player. He's 5'10", 175. These guys are not big receivers. If you could add big body receivers, it just diversifies your group quite a bit. Jabez Woods, another guy that's not very big, 5'11", 180 pounds. So can King give you good reps? Can Reed give you good reps? Mady's the other guy I've been hearing scuttle about as far as being a guy that's making waves a little bit. But the number one guy that I'm looking at receiver that I can't wait to get my eyes on, I think there's a lot of people around Montana State that follow this program. If you watched him in high school, he's one of the most ridiculous athletes I've seen. He's the next in a long line. It's becoming a long line of guys that are these electrifying slot receivers from the state of Montana. But Carter Dalkey from Bozeman Gallatin, I think, has a chance to be an impact player. He graduated early from Gallatin. He got on campus. He's learning the ways. I mean, I know that they already have packages for him that are special packages. When I say he's the latest in the long line, I mean, that group includes Junior Bergen, Taco Dowler, Gabe Solser. You ever heard of those guys? I mean, those guys were all stupid good in high school and in college. Solser obviously had his career cut short by injuries, but if he wouldn't have had his career cut short, I think he could have been a spectacular player. But I'm hearing nothing but great things about Carter Dalkey. I'm hearing that he is a guy that's going to be impossible to keep off the field as a playmaker in Montana State's offense. So really excited to get eyes on him. Then the last guy I wrote down is Carter Curnow. He's a kid out of Dillon, Montana. He's actually joined us on the show twice as a basketball player because he helped lead Dillon to back-to-back state championships in basketball. Well, he's up to 6'4", 240 pounds now as a freshman tight end, and I'm hearing that his athleticism is off the charts. They played him quite a bit last year at tight end, even though he was able to maintain his red shirt. But he got into the playoff games he played and sort of worked his way up the depth chart. It's obviously a hard spot to get on the field because you got Rocky Lancioni and Rylan Schlepp back. And you got a whole smattering of other really good tight ends there at Montana State. But I've heard a lot of good things about Curnow. I've heard that he's a really, really good athlete that's really picked up the system well, and that he's going to be a hard guy to keep off the field, just like they say about Dalkey as well. Nuanez Now ESPN Radio. I know we've been doing a ton of Grizz lately, so I wanted to give you some Bobcat stuff since they're the ones that still have spring ball ongoing. We'll take another break, come back, and talk some NBA. Don't change that dial. Keep it right here, 129 ESPN Radio.
whole family to the Stone of Accord for a wonderful brunch. From traditional comfort food to eclectic specials, there's something for everyone to enjoy. And it wouldn't be a proper Missoula brunch without an Irish coffee and a mimosa. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino. At the Stone of Accord, we use the freshest ingredients to create our homemade traditional Irish classics, fresh salads, and creative specials. Come enjoy our warm, family-friendly atmosphere. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino.
Access to Montana's great backyard is the best part of being a Grizzly. At the University of Montana, our classrooms are the mountain peaks, river valleys, and never-ending plains of the Big Sky Country. We provide students with the hands-on training to protect and enjoy hunting, conservation, and stewardship. UM launches the careers of outdoor leaders so that they can protect our traditions and ensure they are passed down for future generations. Because what's made in Montana is remaking the world.
Why would any business let you use their product and give you 365 days of reassurance? Mattress Firm does because they believe in their mattresses. Save on top brands like Nectar, Tempur-Pedic, Beautyrest, Serta, Stearns & Foster, and others. Mattress Firm carries $149 mattresses all the way up to the luxury Purple Rejuvenate Premier. 0% in payments as low as $39 a month, along with 365 days of reassurance. See why Mattress Firm is Montana's best place to find the sleep you deserve.
Mattress Firm, where it's easy to get a great night's sleep.
Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio Missoula.
Welcome back. 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX by TAD Television, and the ESPN MT app. Colter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal Studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. NBA, sometimes the first round of the playoffs can get a little predictable. This part of the conversation, by the way, presented by Sportsbet Montana. And I actually find the first round of the playoffs really, really fun to bet, because a lot of times you do have sort of like these lopsided matchups. That said, the first round, especially last night, had a whole bunch of unexpected stuff. You had the Cavs take care of business against the Raptors in short order. That was pretty cut and dry. Donovan Mitchell had 30, and the Cavs won 115-105. Cleveland takes a 2-0 lead on the road as they head to Toronto. But then the Hawks rallied from down 14 and had an epic comeback to upset the Knicks in New York City. So that series 1-1. CJ McCollum was awesome. Looked like vintage CJ McCollum. He had 32 points to lead Atlanta to the 107-106 victory that included a huge rally. And then the upset of the night, the Nuggets go down at home. Minnesota continues to be the team that has the formula to stop the Joker, and that formula is centered upon one man, Rudy Gobert. Minnesota goes into Denver last night, wins 119-114. So that series is also evened up at 1-1. So we got some basketball that's going to play out here. I think this is going to be really, really fun to see how these series play out. I think that of these first-round matchups, I think that the Suns have no chance against the Thunder because hardly anybody has a chance against the Thunder. I mean, the Thunder have minus betting odds as a futures bet to win the NBA championship. I think it closed like plus 110. But you're talking about just barely 2-to-1's odds for Oklahoma City to repeat as champions. But I do think there's a couple teams that might be able to give them a little bit of a run. I don't know if it's going to be Phoenix or not. But I do think two of the other series in the West could be fun. Lakers-Rockets, which game 2 plays out tonight, and Nuggets-Timberwolves, which is even at 1-1, and they play again on Thursday. I think both those series could be interesting, could be fun. On the Lakers-Rockets series, sort of a couple superstars that I'm not going to say they're on their last legs, but are certainly getting toward their final chapter. LeBron James for the Lakers and Kevin Durant for the Rockets. The Rockets made the huge trade to bring in Durant, but now he's been out, so that's been sort of holding them back. But they still have some other good pieces. I mean, Alfred Sengun is a pretty efficient offensive player. Ahmed Thompson is one of the best athletes in basketball. And Jabari Smith is a guy that has a lot of promise. As you know, I think he's only 22 years old, out of Auburn, and you know who averaged almost 17 points per game here in sort of a breakout season. So the Rockets have a lot of athleticism. They got a good coach in Ime Udoka, but the Lakers are the team that have the home court advantage in this series, and can LeBron lead them to one more? Also, the Lakers just need to figure out a way to string it out, right? If they can get Luka Doncic back, that's the key to this whole thing. How long will it be until he's back, though? That remains to be seen. But does this team have one run left in them, right? It's not just LeBron. They got Rui Hachimura, who's been in big spots before. They have Marcus Smart, who has played great high-level playoff minutes during his time in Boston. The whole thing is that they have any gas left in the tank. And then, obviously, I think that the winner of that series will go get slaughtered by Oklahoma City. But it could be a good back-and-forth series. I do think, though, the Nuggets and the Timberwolves are the two teams that could push the Thunder. The fact that T-Wolves were the 6th seed this year is a little bit inexplicable. But I do think with Gobert, I mean, he's the great kryptonite for Jokic. He's the one guy that can get under Jokic's skin and really thwart what Jokic does. And he did it again last night. He was so good last night. And Minnesota goes in there and steals game 2. So that makes that series way more intriguing. And the Spurs are obviously a team that is an up-and-coming team. They were the story of the NBA this year as a 62-win team. Victor Wembanyama, I mean, he's him, as the kids would say. I mean, he is the superstar of the next generation. And you pair him with De'Aaron Fox, who's an all-NBA player in previous years. Stephon Castle made tons of progress as a guy out of UConn who won a national championship. That team is awesome, and to win 62 games with that young of a roster is a huge deal. So I think that San Antonio also could give some problems if they can keep on advancing. I think they'll certainly smash the Blazers in that series. They won big in game 1, and they're coming up here in just a couple minutes. That game will tip. Boston and Philly's going right now. Boston was a blowout winner at home in game 1, but Philadelphia is actually up right now, 41-39. But the Knicks-Hawks series, especially after last night, it's hard to say it's not pretty dead even. I mean, the Knicks are maybe a slight edge, but the fact that Atlanta went in there and won at Madison Square Garden, that's an interesting one. And I don't know when the Pistons are going to get pushed, but they got pushed a little bit and lost a lot of it in game 1. So that's 8 over number 1. A lot of question marks in that series as well. We'll give you updates as the NBA playoffs go along. Thanks to Sportsnet Montana for their continued support of our coverage of professional sports. We'll see you tomorrow with Samuel Kim. for our Inside the FCS, as well as a couple Bobcat assistant coaches to help preview the spring game. That'll be at 4 p.m. Thanks for listening. Nuanez Now.